Hi Casper here, and this phone runs Android. Or does it? While these four phones might look like they all run Android, just look like ordinary Android phones, what they run is called YunOS, which is a mobile operating system based on Android created by Alibaba. It is very heavily modified at its core, and Alibaba claims that AliOS or YunOS is not Android, and that it's like just a derivative of Android and not just another Android ROM, but it's a completely different thing that just originated from Android. And at the same time, Google claims that it's an incompatible version of Android. Regarding these phones themselves, the three on the left were made by Konka, which is a pretty big company, mostly making low-end electronics, but it's pretty much unheard of outside of China. And the last one is made by Meizu, which, I mean, needs no introduction. Meizu is a pretty big and well-recognized smartphone OEM. YunOS itself, which is the operating system that this whole video is about, is based on Android, obviously, but it is different from all of the other OEM Android ROMs out there, because both Google and its creators claim that it is not Android in a way, but also it is. It's weird. So essentially, back in like days of its highest popularity, which was like 2014, 2015, it was called YunOS. Later, the name changed to AliOS, but more about that later. Back then, Google claimed that YunOS is an incompatible version of AOSP, and basically they said that launching devices with YunOS is not allowed for Open Handset Alliance members due to the agreement to not produce phones running incompatible Android versions. Acer attempted to ship a YunOS phone, but Google blocked them from doing that due to the Open Handset Alliance agreement. While Meizu, which is the company that made one of the phones that I actually have with YunOS, they got kicked out of the Certified Device program due to shipping a device with YunOS, and actually multiple devices. Meizu shipped many devices with YunOS. They were actually they were the most globally well-known partner of the YunOS program, and the YunOS based device only shipped within mainland China, but I think it's really interesting to showcase just one OEM that people actually know about that actually played a pretty big role in the history of YunOS, but at the same time they used a really heavily modified version of YunOS with their own flamey skin, which basically just feels like a real Android for the most part. And the only real YunOS part you can notice is the Cloud Card app, which is a feature of YunOS which got introduced in YunOS 3, and it is basically like a cloud-based app, which I wasn't able to try because the servers are down. I wasn't able to try most of the cloud-based YunOS features, which actually there's a lot of them, because Yun in Chinese means cloud, and this was originally called Ali YunOS, which is the name of Alibaba's cloud platform. So it was originally meant as like a cloud-based, just overall cloud-focused mobile operating system. But well, since the servers are now down, I wasn't able to try any of the actual cloud features, including Cloud Card. But according to Alibaba, it was a feature that allows users to search for and purchase a variety of services, such as movie passes, without a dedicated app. Cloud Card will also use big data analysis to offer suggestions for users based on their consumption habits and synchronize information across the user's various cloud apps. For example, when a user buys a movie ticket on Cloud Card, information about the theater's location will be generated and stored on the Maps Cloud app. If the user arrives early to the theater, the Cloud Card will automatically suggest dining and shopping options nearby, which just sounds like a whole bunch of buzzwords, but essentially it feels like a combination of a more advanced version of iOS's Siri suggestions with widget mini apps. So at least to me it doesn't seem like it was anything that revolutionary, but then there's not much info about it online, and I wasn't able to try it myself on any of the devices I have, just due to the servers being down. The name, which is YunOS, but it is not the only name of the OS. It was also called AliYunOS at the beginning, then the name changed to YunOS, and then the name changed to AliOS, but there was only one release of mobile AliOS, and it basically just became like an IoT and core focused thing, and they discontinued the mobile operating system. So for its almost entire life, the mobile version of YunOS was called YunOS, and only in the beginning it was called YunOS, but it wasn't very popular during that time. Its highest popularity was during the time when it was actually called YunOS. YunOS launched on 28th of July of 2011, with the first device being the W700. YunOS reached 1 million sold smartphones in May 2012, and YunOS 5 Atom released on 10th of December 2015. It was forked Android 6. And 3 of the devices I have run YunOS 5, while one of them runs YunOS 6 or YunOS 1, which it is actually the only smartphone ever released with this version of YunOS, which was the last release available for mobile devices. It was already after the name change, and there was just a lot of changes to the UI mostly, while I don't have any devices running YunOS 5 with the stock UI. So 2 of them run like this weird amalgamation of YunOS and SmartOS, which is completely different Android skin that was simply adapted to some extent to run on YunOS for these Konka devices, and in a partnership between Konka and SmartOS. And another YunOS 5 device I have is running Flyme, which is Meizu's Android skin on top of YunOS 5. And then the last one, which is the Konka T1, which is the only device released with YunOS 1, at least to my knowledge, from the research I made. It was the only device that actually ran YunOS 1 or YunOS 6 on a mobile device, because then their focus became IoT and cars. And regarding the rebrand, in October of 2017, YunOS changed its name to YunOS, and Alibaba started mostly focusing on IoT devices and on cars. And for its entire life, YunOS offered 100 gigabytes of cloud storage to users, and overall it was a really cloud-focused mobile operating system, but none of the cloud features work in 2025, so I can't really cover that. And also, Alibaba disagrees altogether that YunOS is a version of Android by claiming that it incorporates its own virtual machine, which is different from Android's Dalvik virtual machine. The YunOS runtime environment consists of both its own Java virtual machine, which is different from Android's Dalvik virtual machine, and its own cloud app engine, which supports HTML5 web applications. YunOS didn't only run on smartphones though. Even before the IoT and car thing, there was a YunOS tablet released by HP, which was called the YunOS Book, and it was targeted at the education market, obviously in mainland China, as all YunOS products were. And there is also a version of YunOS running on TVs and set-top boxes from manufacturers such as Lenovo, Skyworth, Haier, and Sharp. When it comes to smartphones, YunOS devices have been released by many more and less known companies. Meizu, which I have a device from, Philips, Doof, Xiaolajiao, Konka, 9, China Mobile, Hike, Green Orange, Bird, K-Dash, Blueboo, Venus, Wishway, Voto, Kingston, Ox, Aoki, G5, Necken, Pult, Ubitel, Intki, Uniscope, Zoppo, B, Amoy, Yepen, Unistar, Utime, and Com, which most of these are just really obscure brands only available on the domestic Chinese market, and mostly just like really budget devices, sort of welcome-ish even. There's also some pretty well-known brands such as Meizu, Philips, which we don't really know for making smartphones, but they made some in the past, and they license their brand currently to some companies in China that sell Philips branded phones, but they're not actually made by Philips on the Chinese domestic market, so technically Philips still sells phones in China. Then China Mobile obviously is China's biggest mobile operator, and that's pretty much it from the well-known brands. The rest are really niche and obscure China-only brands, excluding Konka and Doof and to some extent Xiaolajiao, but yeah, they haven't really seen the global market at all. One of the only devices that had something more than low-end or low mid-range specs was the Philips i966 released in 2014, which had a flagship Snapdragon 801 SoC and it ran YunOS 3.0. It was one of the few truly flagship devices running YunOS, which is mostly available on budget or medium devices. Another really interesting device to launch with YunOS was the Meizu MX4, but it wasn't interesting because of YunOS. It was interesting because there were 3 operating system variants of it. The regular one running Android-based Flyme, the YunOS edition running Flyme based on YunOS 3.0, and the Ubuntu Touch edition being one of the only commercially released devices on Canonical's Ubuntu Touch mobile platform. YunOS 3 added one of its most important features, Cloud Guard, which I wasn't able to try as it relies on servers which are down, and the only real screenshots of the early all YunOS, which was the original name that I could find, were really low quality, but they are from the K-W700, which is the first device to run all YunOS. So I'm gonna put them somewhere here on the screen, but they're extremely low quality, so basically serve no purpose. In mid-2017, YunOS 6 launched at the YunOS Developer Conference soon after the name officially changes to AllUS and one phone gets released before they completely shift focus to automotive and IoT. I really wish they kept these original schemorphic icons. In its early days, YunOS was also available for download for other devices such as Samsung phones as a custom ROM. There was also plenty of weird Wacom phones, fake devices running YunOS on the domestic market, the Chinese domestic market, such as the fake Xiaomi Mi 4W, mentioned on miuipolska.pl, which is a Polish forum for Xiaomi users. Xiaomi never released a device with YunOS. So that's all for the actual history of YunOS, but now let's move on to the devices that I actually have, which the first one is the Konka T1, which I already mentioned. This device is running YunOS 6 or AllUS 1, which was the only release of YunOS after the AllUS rebrand that was running on smartphones. It kind of looks like a Galaxy Note 8, and yeah, it's running AllUS or YunOS 6. Then the second device I have is another Konka. This is the Konka R11, which is running YunOS 5, but this is not just YunOS 5. This is YunOS 5 with a Smartisan skin on top. So it is just really nice in my opinion. Schemorphic design. I love Smartisan. I might make a video about Smartisan overall, about their actual phones at some point, but this is YunOS modified to just somewhat resemble Smartisan OS in its design, in a partnership between Konka and Smartisan. And the next phone I have is the Konka S5, which is very similar when it comes to the way it looks. It looks very similar to the R11, and the software it's running is also basically the same. It is also YunOS 5 with a Smartisan skin on top, so these two devices are basically siblings from a very similar time period from the same company, running the same software essentially. But there are a little different specs in the form factor, so they are definitely not the same device, but they are basically from the same exact lineup. And then the last device I have is from Meizu, from a company that you probably heard of at some point. It is the Meizu M5 YunOS edition, which runs Meizu's Flyme skin, but a variant based on Alibaba's YunOS. But it just feels like regular Android for the most part, except for the Cloud Guard app, which is available on this device. But aside from that, it is pretty much just regular Android-based Flyme. It lacks a lot of the YunOS characteristics that other devices have. It is very heavily customized by Meizu. So these are all the YunOS-based devices that I have, and this one is the Konka T1, which is running YunOS 6 or AllUS. The name changed at that point. This is the Konka R11, which is running YunOS 5 with a Smartisan skin. This is the Konka S5, which is basically a twin of this one. It is running also YunOS 5 with a Smartisan OS skin. And this is the Meizu M5 YunOS edition, which is running Flyme based on YunOS 5. YunOS 5 is based on Android 6, and YunOS 6 or AllUS is based on Android 7. So let's get started with the Konka T1, which is the latest device, and it is the only one running what is pretty much stock YunOS. Well, all of the other ones are pretty heavily modified. So obviously the UI doesn't look like stock Android at all. It looks it doesn't really even look like any other Android skin. It looks very much original, and just the way how the home screen are arranged and all of the like icon effects and stuff is very very original, very just specific to YunOS. You can align the icons to be like kind of cut off and to the side, or well, just make them in the center as they're by default. There are themes with either the background or with just no background icons directly on the wallpaper. You can also change obviously the wallpaper, the effects of the home screen, basically just the home screen swipe effect, which as you can see, like kind of like this drift of the icons by default, which is really nice, and I haven't seen anything like this on any other Android skin. Now there's also this texture which basically just enables or disables blur. You can just have this like slightly opaque tiles, but by default it is blurred, and it looks really nice in my opinion, with also these like different levels of blur on some of the tiles. It really reminds me of the Meizu OS materials that are built into the launcher, which also have a similar effect. That's the texture. And the widget, well, you cannot add widgets to the home screen, but you can only change whether this shows here and whether it includes weather or not, or you can just disable it altogether. And now by going to the side or by swiping down, well, by swiping down you just open search, but by going to this side, this should be CloudCard essentially. This should just show you the cards that CloudCard normally would, but obviously the servers are down. Same thing with the search, the search doesn't work anymore, but you can still try to do it, or just enter a website address which is going to open essentially CloudCard, just the browser included in CloudCard. It's just going to open the CloudCard browser. Essentially this is part of CloudCard, but it also exists on all of the other versions of YunOS, and it's just basically the basic built-in browser, which everything kind of revolves around, but obviously all of the actual Alibaba related servers are down. Now, as for the system apps, it has a custom design that's very specific to YunOS. It doesn't really look anything alike other skins, which, I mean, a lot of Chinese Android skins tend to look similar, but this looks really, really different. This is the notification panel, and then the control center, which swipes up from the bottom and includes the dock of the apps that you actually have here on the home screen. And you can also swipe up further to just go into regular settings menu. It is like, the settings menu is, even if you open it from the icon, it is basically just like a drop down. It isn't a full app. I haven't seen like this approach to the settings app anywhere else, where it is basically just like an extension of the quick settings and not an actual full app. Well, obviously after opening and going somewhere, it will just obviously just redirect you to an actual regular activity, but this settings function is really interesting in my opinion. So the clock is also really interesting with all of those animations. I think it looks really neat. Then in settings we have stuff like Xiaoyun, which is the Aliyun, which is a YunOS digital assistant, which doesn't work anymore, but the settings don't really want to work right now. But if you hold the home button, it will open Xiaoyun, but it cannot do anything instead. Now, obviously you have themes and wallpapers, and from the themes, as I mentioned earlier, there is one with the background, the grid, the tiles, and there is one with the icons being just directly on the home screen. There were more themes available, but obviously the server's down, so I cannot show that. Then obviously no updates, but you can see all iOS branding here. And in about, this shows the EUI branding, which is Konka's Android skin, but this phone doesn't really run EUI, it just says it runs EUI. And also the stock launcher on iOS or YunOS also included this feature where some apps had this like quick preview from swiping up on the icon. This doesn't exist on any of the other UIs I have here because they have customized versions with different launchers, but the stock launcher, even on earlier versions of all US or YunOS, had this pop-up view for some apps. As you can see, not a lot of apps indicated by this arrow next to the app name. Then there is this Mommy Shield, which is basically a device manager. I'm pretty sure this is made by Konka specifically. It exists on all of my free Konkas, but the UI and the icon don't really fit the stock YunOS look, so I assume this is made by Konka. This is just a regular phone manager app, which is really common on Chinese devices. Then map is just Gaude or AMAP, Gaude D2. Then member center is just the cloud, just the home of the cloud features essentially on this version, but nothing works because the servers are down. Then obviously Xiaoyun is the voice assistant. App Center obviously down as well. Doesn't work. Games also doesn't work. But the game App Store also includes this pop-up view. Well, obviously I don't have any support games. User service is a Konka specific app with just some like support things. And that's about it for this device. I think that there's a lot of interesting stuff about this version of iOS, including also this navigation bar, which this way just go back, this way reset, and press home and hold. Is the Xiaoyun voice assistant. So that's it for this one. The hardware isn't really that interesting. It has two cameras. It kind of looks like the Galaxy Note 8. It has a fingerprint sensor. It has around the corners on the display. It has a 16-inch display, 1080p, 6 GB of RAM, 64 GB of storage. The SoC, and here's some MediaTek. I don't remember right now, but you can check here. It is the Helio P23. The device is called the Konka T1, or the sort of code name, or just the model name is the Konka 801. More specs I guess here on the screen if you're interested in the specs of this device, but it is nothing special. Obviously YunOS 6 or iOS 1 is based on Android 7.1, and it claims this is just using regular art, that maybe there is a customer runtime that just getting recognized as art. I'm not sure about that. So specs, the camera's made by OmniVision. Well, the cameras are actually, never mind, this is the front camera. The back cameras are made by Sony, and the second one is made by OmniVision, and the front camera is made by OmniVision as well. Here are obviously all the camera specs, battery info, thermals, MTK. The sensors, it lacks a gyroscope, but it has a barometer, which it doesn't. It just shows that it does. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So now let's just move on to the second device, which is the Konka R11, which is the device I'm going to be showcasing most of the SmartSN version of, because the Konka S5 runs the same software, but it actually, despite looking more modern, it actually has slightly worse specs. So I'm going to be showcasing most of it on the R11, plus I have the S5 set to Chinese while the R11 is English, so it's going to be easier to showcase this software on this one. This one's basically the same, it runs basically the same software, it's just a little different on the hardware side, and it is a little older and has some slightly, very slightly better specs. I think it's just the SoC is slightly better on this one. I'm actually not sure. No, actually, I mean on this one, sorry. This one has slightly better specs. This one's slightly older. This one has slightly better specs, but and this one looks slightly more modern, ironically. But they are pretty much the same in almost every way, especially when it comes to software. So I am just gonna showcase the software on this one. So first things first, this is running a Smartisan OS, kind of resembling a modified version of YunOS, which has a lot of the same UI and features as regular Smartisan OS running on Smartisan devices. The result, the lock screen is very similar. It's very, very close. Now, obviously, I'm not good with the fingerprint, and the launcher is pretty much the same. While this is full Smartisan OS, so it's obviously different, but well, this is like this light YunOS or YunOS based version of Smartisan OS made for Konka in partnership with Smartisan. So we go into settings, both devices. Obviously, the settings are completely different because this is YunOS with just this YunOS. Sorry, this is YunOS with just some elements of Smartisan OS design, and this is actual Smartisan OS. So the settings are completely different. So I'm gonna put this aside for now and focus on the actual YunOS. So the settings design is different here. It is an actual app. It is like just like a pop-up the way it is in YunOS 1 or YunOS 6. And obviously all of the cloud services are also down. Nothing works. It's a little laggy. There are obviously now some Smartisan features such as Big Bang, which is just like an OCR thing based on holding text, which also exists obviously on the real Smartisan. Then we have Smartisan launcher settings, which is different from here. I'm gonna show how it is on actual Smartisan. It is, well, here it is different, right? But here you have the option to change it to the standard YunOS launcher instead of Smartisan launcher, which looks completely different and which is just basically the standard YunOS stuff with Konka icons, but this one actually supports the swipe up, the kind of like pop-up thing, and looks much more similar to how it looked on the T1, even though it looks completely different. Now this is the Smartisan launcher, and compared to an actual Smartisan phone, there are less themes here. Information flow is basically just enabling Cloud Card, which is this on the side. Similarly to how you can enable the extra switchboard left screen on Smartisan OS, on real Smartisan OS. So it's like an extra left screen, but here it doesn't really make sense because doing this will lead you to the same place where swiping to the right would with the information flow enabled. Now there is less launcher themes on this YunOS amalgamation than on real Smartisan OS, which has a lot of themes. Here you have, well, a lot less, but obviously it is not the same operating system at the end of the day. I mean, it is Android, but it is not the same like far end of Android. Page animations, same thing, no changes. Both have the same options, the same here. Now, fast launch is basically just relating to the Smartisan OS launcher feature, where you can just get into this view, and essentially smart launch just means you can launch apps by just pressing on them from this view instead of just having to go back to this view to launch them. So then going forward, themes, wallpapers, icons. Here on the real Smartisan, we have themes, wallpaper, icons here. And basically, wallpapers are completely different here. They're not actual Smartisan wallpapers, they're Konka wallpapers. Themes, I already showed before, animations too. Applications, application icons, you can just select custom icons. Nothing changes here. Both have the same set of features in this aspect. But the real Smartisan has the ability to change the color theme, while the Konka is stuck on blue. There is no ability to change that. Now, obviously, display and stuff like that, it looks completely different. There is no like this smart and schemorphic UI outside of the top bar here of the action bar. It's just standard YunOS UI design language with those animations and sound. Also, obviously, there are no smart sounds, no smart ringtones. It's all just standard YunOS stuff. And the rest completely different than the smart sensor. Doesn't really matter here because there are no like similarity between the two. Now this is basically just standard YunOS. Aside from that, so yeah, this is running YunOS 5.6.0. Device name is the Konka R11, but the like model name, code name sort of, is the Konka 711. 3 GB of RAM, 32 gigs of storage. YunOS 5.6.0, as I already mentioned. Android 6.0 is the base. Well, I'm not really gonna go through many of the apps because they're basically the same as the Smartisan apps, which you can find the screenshots of online very easily. Smartisan is pretty common, pretty well known in China. The camera app is always different. It has this cloud panel here, which is specific to YunOS, and it also has like this like tag thing, but it doesn't. I don't have anything here. Also, this is the headquarters of Konka. It's a pretty big company, even though you probably never heard of it. And aside from that, there's pretty much nothing special about this. Just a lot of things just resemble regular Smartisan OS. So I think I'm gonna leave it at that. This is YunSearch, which is basically Cloud Card. They're supposed to be. Yeah, it doesn't work. Okay, it's the server's down, but if you search anything here, it will lead you to the same browser that you saw before on the T1. Obviously, this doesn't recognize the TLD here, so it tries to just shows an error related to the actual Alibaba server search engine that CloudCard used, which is now non-functional. Then one step is a Smartisan feature, which is also on the real Smartisan, which is like this extra panel here. Also the like one-handed mode, which can be accessed like this, shows the internals of the phone. Same way have this on a regular Smartisan, except here I'm pretty sure they're blurred, but this is the Smartisan idea as well, except here I'm pretty sure this is actually this phone and not the Smartisan device, so that's cool. That is some nice attention to detail, which cannot be seen in the folders, which look really junky. Yeah, on the real Smartisan, folders look like this, much less junky, much nicer overall. Just feels much more carefully done than this, which just feels like a really cursed, weird amalgamation of YunOS and Smartisan OS. That was just done for Konka specifically. Then I should probably go through full specs of the device, which you can see device info HW. So yeah, the name of the device I already mentioned. Soc MT6737T. It runs YunOS 5, which is based on Android 6. This also says ORD, which is Android runtime, which it might be modified again. The same thing was with the T1. I have no idea about that, but Alibaba claims it's different. So, then we go to screen 1080p, 5.5 inch. 3 GB of RAM, 32 gigs of storage, which it says 23, but it is 32 gigs. Cameras, these are the cameras made by Hynix. There's only one camera on the back, one camera on the front. Yeah, the battery. Thermals, just gonna scroll through this because there's not much to be focused on. Only 3 sensors from the standard test. From the standard test device into AW, but also the full list only shows 3 sensors. And yeah, nothing really interesting in here. yeah, so that's it about this device. Now, this is the S5, which is basically a twin sibling of the R11, which is very similar in its design. It looks a little more modern, but has slightly worse specs. The R11 was a little more expensive, if I remember correctly, and it just has slightly better specs and is a little newer. This is actually a little older despite looking more modern. It has rounded corners on the display and a little more panoramic of a display. This one is set to Chinese, so I'm just gonna quickly show some things. Basically everything is the same as on the R11, so just gonna go into settings and show the about phone section, this is the Konka S5 with the model name being the Konka 510. And let's just go into device info HW because I really got nothing to show on this phone that I didn't show on the previous one. They're basically the same. Yeah, MT6737H, which I think is, if I remember correctly, hold on. Yeah, this is the R11 has an MT6737T, while the S5 has an MT6737H. So it's very, very similar. It is just a different variant of the same overall model of the SoC. And then we got the same version of the system. Really nothing interesting here. 720p display, 5.7 inches, so slightly bigger than the R11, but this one's a little more panoramic. It is 18:9, while that one was 16:9. 3 GB of RAM as well, 32 GB of storage as well. Cameras, Samsung and Hynix. Battery, the rest, which, I mean, doesn't really matter. 3 sensors, the same on the list. Star, accelerometer, light, and proximity, so nothing changes here. Same apps, doesn't really matter, doesn't matter. Yeah, basically nothing interesting here. So that's about it. About these two Konkas, which are siblings, basically. They are basically the same device at its core. They have just some smaller differences, but overall, yeah, you can see the camera bump even. They are very much siblings. Now let's move on to the Meizu, which is the least YunOS-y, but one of the most unique of these devices. It runs Flyme. It's running Flyme 5.2, based on YunOS 5.1.1. So this is the M5 YunOS edition, or the Meizu M5 in Chinese, full name. So this doesn't really feel like YunOS at all, besides from just the name YunOS being used, but for the most part it just feels like regular Flyme, but obviously there is CloudCard, so that is the specific app that pretty much makes it apparent that this is actually YunOS. And you could try searching stuff, but no, this is actually a link to Cinema. The browser is the same as on the other ones. It is also the CloudCard browser, so there's nothing really different here. As for searches, well, it shows you the same error, so it is exactly the same as on the other devices, except here CloudCard is actually an app with an actual shortcut on the home screen instead of like a panel that you swipe up from somewhere, or just really an integral part of the system. Here it just functions as a regular app because, well, this is very heavily modified YunOS. It's not really made to focus on the cloud stuff as much as YunOS would normally focus on. This overall very much is like regular Flyme. There's also really not much to show on this one. It just, even this is an open CloudCard, it just very much regular Flyme. There's not much actual YunOS stuff in here besides just the name. So let's just go, I guess, into the device info HW again, and that will be it for just showcasing these phones, because this one is also pretty boring. It's different than the previous ones, but there's not much interesting things to show here. So Meizu M5, obviously, again, MT6750, Meizu M5, also YunOS 5, so Android 6. This is an M5 YunOS edition. There was also an M5 running just regular Android, for Android Flyme based on Android. Also says Art 2.1.0, which again
same thing as before. And screen 720p, 16 by 9. As for the size, I'm actually not sure. I'm gonna put it somewhere on the screen maybe. But yeah, 720p, 16 by 9 screen. Memory, this one is actually the weakest one out of all these three. 2 GB of RAM and 16 GB of storage. Camera, Samsung Hynix, 30 megapixel, 5 megapixel, one camera on the back, one camera on the front. It's actually here. It's pretty hard to see with the black bezel. Battery info and all of the other boring stuff. Sensor, which this one actually has more sensors than the Konkas. And yeah, that's about it. Not really anything interesting to show about this phone either. I really like the way hardware looks and feels. It kind of reminds me of an iPhone 5C, but also the compact size is really nice. But aside from that, it's pretty much the same as the regular M5 non-YunOS version, just that this one has cloud core and some other features that don't know that, so it's effectively pretty much as a regular Meizu M5 right now. But it has YunOS and settings, so it is technically a piece of history.
Now, while I'm sure there's a lot more to talk about when it comes to YunOS or iOS, I can't really say much more without having experienced it back when the cloud services were still up. And at some point, YunOS actually became the second most popular mobile operating system in mainland China, right after Android and before iOS. But that didn't last long, and it was mostly thanks to mobile carriers in China selling low-end devices with YunOS, but it wasn't by much and it didn't last for long, so it never really gained any massive success for an extended period of time. But there was a while when YunOS was actually really successful on the domestic Chinese market, which was the only market that pretty much ever heard of it, because that's the market it was meant for. It was never meant to be exported outside of China, which didn't age very well with some nerds, but I really wish I could have experienced this mobile OS before all of the services got shut down, and just talk a lot more about it than I can now without having ever actually used the cloud services, because all of these devices I have gotten within the past year, obviously used, but so yeah, that's I think all I can say about YunOS. If you ever used YunOS, if you maybe live in China, and if you have any experience, if you have anything you'd like to add, I'd love to get some more information in the comments. If I missed anything in my research and in my own playing around with YunOS on these 4 devices. So yeah, maybe I'll make another video about YunOS at some point with more devices and with hopefully some more information, with hopefully some really interesting devices. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, you can leave it a like. If you didn't like it, you can leave it a dislike. And obviously, you can subscribe for hopefully more videos. I took a really long break, but I'm kind of trying to get back to it. So yeah, thanks for watching, and hopefully see you in the next one.